Well, it's about time. Finally, we have a trailer for the Chaos Dwarfs being second DLC in an entire year of Total War Warhammer 3. The pace so far has been glacially slow, and yes, we do have a trailer and an official announcement, something that we already knew. But before you get too excited, I do have some bad news. We'll get to that in just a minute, so temper your expectations and let's get to the trailer. Should note I have not seen this yet. You should also probably go watch it on your own if you haven't yet.
To follow the flame.
Okay, so far we've got Chaos Dwarfs.
To tear down the old ways.
Looks like some orc and goblin, we call them laborers.
And weakness.
Yes. Much industrialization, makes sense.
Nothing remains but power and ambition. This roaring fire
Okay, so
always
again,
demands
industrialism.
more.
Nothing really super new here. We do see them assembling some kind of
More sacrifice.
trains, it almost looks like. Like this machine here looks to me like a giant train engine, almost like a steam tank type unit. We'll go back and look at this more in just a second, but we see some more elite looking dwarfs here. Clearly the dwarfs are up to no good. Chaos dwarfs doing their evil magics. See some bull centaurs. This mecha dwarf dude looks very cool.
Burn first.
Oh boy. Got some flying monsters there. Yeah, looks like some different types of war machines, various artilleries. I believe those things are... I forget the name. Some kind of fire spirit, obviously. Demon engine thing. Very cool. But... yeah, I mean, definitely everything looks great. Don't get me wrong. So far, everything we've seen in the trailer looks absolutely fantastic. So let's go ahead and just quickly kind of zoom through things again here. So we see some various artillery pieces throughout. This one looks to be some kind of like cannon or mortar from flaming projectile here. Dwarfs obviously rushing to defend. And then we see some bull centaurs here, along with some chaos dwarfs with some kind of gunpowder weapons here. Both orc and goblins, and of course the hobgoblins as well. Like we've got this guy, as we'll see more in just a minute. It's actually a legendary hero hobgoblin, which is cool, but yeah, I have some opinions about it. But see some various hobgoblins, again more chaos dwarfs, and then this scene's very interesting. We get sort of this like factory here and some various components that certainly are reminiscent of trains. Like here we get this giant kind of cannon artillery piece being lowered onto this car that very much looks like a train car, right? And of course, obviously this thing very much looks like a steam engine. So now in this shot here, we get a little bit more of a wide view and we can see some of these different carriage types. We've got this one with the big cannon on it. We've got this one with the like mining death implement looking thing, regular kind of engine looking thing up here. A few other various types. It's a little bit hard to pick them all out here, but it looks very interesting. I'm wondering if they'll have like a bunch of different steam tank style units, like these kind of armored mechanical chariots. We get all these guys here as well, looking very cool. Can we actually pick out the kind of weapons they're holding? A little bit hard to see, but it looks like some kind of two-handed axe, perhaps? I don't know. If I had my zoom-in tools and I cared more, I'd probably, zoom in and actually try and figure it out. But, of course, Chaos Dwarfs will have access to magic. We see that here. This guy casting runes and magic and all sorts of fiery death. And again, we see couple of different carriage types. We see some various unit types. Love the giant, tall, angry dwarf hats. Very cool. More bull centaurs, the flying monsters. I forget the name. Is it a Taurus? I believe. We'll look at all that in just a minute. I do have a Steam page and an FAQ to show you guys as well, which is where we'll get to the bad news. But, yeah, very cool flying monsters, demonic machines, all that stuff. So let's actually go ahead and get to that blog post. Or, you know what, actually, let's start with the Steam page first. We'll switch on over to that. So we've got the Forge of the Chaos Dwarfs is the official name on Steam here. You can pick it up through Steam or various other platforms, whatever you'd prefer, whatever you have the game on. So what do you get here? I would have to double check, and I should have probably double checked before I started recording this. I believe this is more expensive than Champions of Chaos. Or, you know, you could also check this price against the price of like the Tomb Kings or the Vampire Coast. Be a comparable situation. But the biggest drawback for me is the fact that Chaos Dwarfs only have 3 legendary lords, which is a big problem. They do have a legendary hero, but a legendary hero is in no way a replacement for a legendary lord. I mean, obviously, a 4th legendary lord gets their own faction, right? Especially with how the standards are now, they get their own faction, their own unique start position, hopefully a unique playstyle and some interesting mechanics to help differentiate them from the other 3. As it is right now, we've only got 3 legendary lords for Chaos Dwarfs, which is pretty sad, especially after all this time of waiting, not having any new content to go on. You know, I was definitely expecting more out of Creative Assembly. Really, this standard is what we would expect for Bretonnia, which was a free faction released in 2017. So really quite far behind the standard of what we should expect, especially if they're going to be charging more for it. Again, I'll have to double check and leave a comment if that is incorrect, but assuming that it is correct, it's pretty sad. But what do you get with the Curse of the Chaos Dwarfs, or Forge of the Chaos Dwarfs, or whatever? Astragoth Iron Hand. So this is the Mecha Dwarf Bro who we saw crafting that demonic monstrosity. High Priest of Hashut, oldest living Chaos Dwarf Sorcerer Prophet. His body is deteriorating, but he made himself into a mech, which is very cool. Drazoth the Ashen was the magical bro, Sorcerer Prophet of Hashut. So it should be quite a powerful caster. And warrior, mighty warrior, yes. And then Jatan the Black, who is, yeah, just another Chaos Dwarf melee dude. Pretty generic, boundless cruelty. I mean, it seems very generic for a Chaos Dwarf. But anyway, new chaotic units. So obviously, we've got Kadai. Okay, that's the name of this thing. The Kadai Fireborn and the Kadai Destroyer. I'm guessing this is the Destroyer, and the other ones we saw earlier in the trailer are the Fireborn. You've got some of the mechanics here, of course. You're going to be constructing this great drill of Hashut, apparently. And infernal labor. I love that they're using this labor as sort of a euphemism for another word that if I say on YouTube might get my video demonetized, so I'm not going to, but you can imagine what that word might be in terms of, you know, forced labor. Yeah, their economy is going to be based around such, so that should be interesting. Yeah. They harvest raw materials, construct buildings. Should be interesting. I'm genuinely curious to see how their economy ends up working. Yeah, there's not really much else to go on here. Some other little bits and pieces about the mechanics that you can go read on your own. Let's go on over to the blog post and see if there's any more information we can glean from here. The release date is going to be April 13th, so we're just under a month away. It's a pretty fast marketing campaign. Actually surprised me a little bit. I mean, I guess the last marketing campaign really I have to think about is Immortal Empires and then the launch of Warhammer 3 itself, both of which were longer, I guess, because they have more content to show. But anyway, you can pre-order, although I would say it's wise with most gaming products these days to wait till you can actually see it before you pre-order, but many of you are going to anyway. Yeah, they're going to talk about the legendary characters. Again, bit of a letdown. Not that Gordas is a bad thing. I mean, Gordas is good. Legendary heroes are nice to have, but again, like Britonia had 3 legendary lords and a legendary hero. Free faction 2017. Don't want to beat that dead horse too much. No pun intended. But anyway, yeah, so they're going to talk a little bit more about Astrogoth Ironhead. If you guys want to go read this blog post, definitely, and find out more about him, definitely go check it out. It definitely looks cool in terms of design. One of the coolest Dwarf Lords I've ever seen. I don't know, I kind of like mechs. So this guy, in terms of being like a mecha dwarf monster, is quite cool. It'd be pretty interesting to see his stats as well, kind of how those mechanical augments differentiate him from regular kind of infantry dwarf lords. But yeah, he is an armored caster with a mixed spell of fire and has Shut. So we do have official confirmation then that the Chaos Dwarfs are going to be getting their own unique lore of magic, and will also have access to lore of fire. Should both be very fun to play around with. Yeah, able to cover plenty of ground at respectable speed, so it does seem then that his mechanical legs do allow him to traverse faster than a regular Dwarf Lord. Be very cool. I'm definitely excited to use this guy in combat. Looks quite cool. Gordas also, I love the design of him. I really like this sort of like almost Mongol looking armor. I personally would love to see a Hobgoblin Comet faction someday fully fleshed out and released, but for now the best we've got is Gordas. And I'd imagine some Hobgoblin units on the Chaos Dwarfs roster. Again, love the design, super cool character, not an adequate replacement for a Legendary Lord. You know, it's great as a supplement and sort of a value add, but not a replacement by any means. That said, very cool, and definitely looking forward to using him in campaign and in multiplayer. I would guess, given that he is a Goblin Lord, probably going to be relatively cheap and cost-effective, maybe not an absolute world beater by any means, but definitely one that might be a decent piece in your toolkit, especially for assassinating casters and other squishier targets in this matchup, or matchups against Chaos Dwarf. So here we get a little bit more of a glimpse into their campaign screen, and we can see that there's multiple resources up on the top. This one with the crates, the like mine car with the coal, I'm guessing is raw materials. This one is a gun and axe, so probably like weaponry. We've got some other kind of demonic resource here. And then you can see the labor and workload. So it looks like, you know, if we see here, different buildings will increase your workload, and then yeah, raw materials output confirms there. So interesting. They're going to have kind of a multi-layer economy that should be a lot more engaging than playing other factions economies. I know one of the weakest parts, in my opinion, in terms of a total war game for Warhammer has been the economic side. I mean, obviously the battles are more nuanced and you have different stuff going on than in historical Total Wars, but the economy has been lacking a little bit, so I'm definitely excited to see how this goes here. Yeah, so it goes acquire labor, harvest raw materials, construct nightmarish buildings, and forge hellish weapons, and then bolster the Chaos Dwarf. So should be interesting. Of course, treasury, you've also got your regular gold as well. This is the Tower of Jar mechanic we saw on the Steam page, so it looks like you'll be able to maybe get some different bonuses by spending that other resource to occupy these seats here. And yeah, then we'll move on a little bit to my specialty, the battles. Yes, Bull Centaurs. So one of the best things, you know, on paper at least, about the Chaos Dwarfs when you compare them to their Order Brethren is their magic and mobility. Bull Centaurs are a big part of that. They are obviously centaurs. Monstrous Edition means this, to me, says they're going to be more of a monstrous type cavalry, unlike, say, Centaurs, who are more of a traditional type cavalry. But yeah, let's see here. Can play both offensive and defensive roles. Don't let their hulking size, preference for great weapons fool you. They are most definitely keen-witted. We also see, okay, Lamasu. This is one of the flying monsters. Very cool. Bale Taurus as well, and the Great Bale Taurus. So they'll have a number of options for flying monsters. Lamasu is more of like a support / anti-magic monster. Yeah, is instead able to employ magic, launching fireballs, transporting allies, shadowy mounts. Interesting. Should be interesting to see how they play. Not really a lot to go on here so far, so definitely look forward to more news in the future, but Just wanted to highlight the fact that you are getting less potentially for more money, which is not something that we want. So I would definitely advise all of you guys to respectfully push back against Creative Assembly, you know, only including 3 legendary lords here, and maybe we can get a 4th legendary lord added as free LC at a later date. I mean, there's absolutely no chance of getting it added before the DLC is released, obviously, but we have shown, you know, with the opening up Immortal Empires to everyone, if the community puts its voice together, we can affect change at Creative Assembly, and I think this is a big one. I mean, we are honestly, and I end up getting these for free, so I have to kind of put myself in your shoes, right, the consumer who's actually having to pay for this, and say, is it fair that I'm getting less for more money? I don't think so. But that's it for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.